Blog Talk Radio.
Let's build a world, make it look better than this one. Light the old one up, watch it burn from a distance, a yellow flaming light. I can see in your eyes, 'cause this new world will be, it will be our biggest pride. Look up at the stars, watch them shine brighter than ever. Lie down on our backs and let us see if we could measure the space.
Good afternoon, everybody. Actually, it's morning here in the Boston area, 11 o'clock Eastern Time in Massachusetts. It's Thursday, June 24th, and this is A Dose of Dr. Gwen. I'm your host, Dr. Gwen, and you are listening to Show 26, Safe and Unplugged Summer Fun. This is going to be our last show before I take a break for my own summer fun this summer, as I do every summer. I think the point of the summer is to really spend some time outdoors with your family. So I actually unplugged for most of the summer, as I hope all of you will. But before we all take a summer hiatus together, I thought it would be great to do a show on how to do that and what to look for this summer while you're out and about with your family, because there are a few health and safety traps as we go about summer leisure time. I actually found a great quote for the summer. I love this quote. Summer fun is when laziness finds respectability. And I think that that really sums it up. I love that lazy day of summer quote, and I think that's what all of our mottos should be this summer, just to tap into the lazy days of summer, keep your schedules off to the minimum, and just go for broke. Just do things that you normally wouldn't do over the school year and over the work year when, you know, we have to work as adults, but our kids really need that break from all the chaos of the school year. If you think about it, smallest of kids have kind of a hectic school year these days. We have them in activities. They are sort of running about because of everything that we have to do. So summer's a great time to just sort of slow down and chill. Everyone just needs to chill, including taking a break from technology. So to do that well, I want to just give you guys a bit of a perspective of some of the things that we can all do to tap into a lazy summer. So keep that in mind. But there are a few things, as I was looking into the information to give you today, that are a little bit shocking when it comes to statistics. So I don't want to overload you with statistics, but I do want to give you a few little tidbits of information in the next half hour to sort of think about, because we do a lot of things over the summer that we don't do over the rest of the school and work year. We tend to be outdoors a lot more. We spend a lot of time in water with boats and with pools and with hot tubs. We do a lot more activities that involve wheels, whether it's bikes or scootering. Sometimes we'll be on vacation and we'll rent Segways, or we'll find ourselves on jet skis, or we might be somewhere in the tropics where they have ATVs, all-terrain vehicles. So it's a little bit helpful to know what the safety is about that. We use a lot more backyard trampolines. So let me kind of run through a few of those things for you. And also with July 4th coming up, there's fireworks around, and some of those can be quite dangerous. Now, when it comes to all-terrain vehicles, they are incredibly risky. They are a lot of fun. I've ridden them myself, and the thing about them is, just looking at Massachusetts law, for example, anything that requires a motor is regulated for 16 years of age or over, except for all-terrain vehicles here in Massachusetts. And if you think about it, that makes sense that why there are so many injuries for kids under 14, including, sadly, some deaths. A girl recently almost drowned by losing control of her ATV into a cranberry bog. So the biggest push right now of a bunch of parents whose children have been injured or killed on ATVs here in Mass is to try to get the age the legal age of using ATVs raised to 16. It sounds like it's going to settle out at 14, but even that would be better because controlling these things is really hard. I didn't realize how hard they were to control until we were on a cruise a few years back, and we're down in the Mexico area where we went on a beach ATV adventure, and my husband and I were the ones driving it, and these ATVs were actually made for passengers, so each of us had our kids with us, and they were challenging to control. I can't imagine a kid under 16 handling these things, so I was shocked that people have their kids on them, even the small ones. So if you are going to have your children on ATVs, there are a few statistics you need to know. In the last couple weeks, between May 25th and June 7th of 2010, there have been 41 deaths on ATVs. 13 of those were kids 16 years of age or under. So that shows you just kind of where the curve is for kids. So that's very sad. And one thing to remember is that most of these injuries end up being, brain traumas, broken bones, and a lot of injuries that are really, really severe. Sometimes it's just because the thing loses control and flips or runs into a tree. What can minimize injuries if you are going to consider your child going on these is making sure it's a certified ATV course with instructors, make sure that it's the right size for your child, make sure everyone's wearing a helmet, no tandem driving, and make sure the kids really have training. If you sense that they're not able to control it, just take them off of it. Never have kids drive them with just adults who don't know what they're doing, and all of those things make a big difference with ATVs. So that's ATV safety. Another big safety issue this time of year is you're out in a park, you're camping or you're hiking, and you come across a really beautiful lake or pond and you want to go swimming. Some of those are really great to swim in, and if you're at one of our national parks, usually the guides or the park rangers can tell you which ones have been approved for swimming or are safe. You have to be careful because some of those have hazards at the bottom of the lake or the pond that you can't see. So make sure you know which ones those are. You never want to jump off the side or let your kids do that because you can land on something and break a leg or crack your head open. There are a number of injuries a year from that happening where people just stumble across a watering hole and just go swimming and sort of create their own little diving board or rope and get injured. Best to just kind of slide in and dip as opposed to jump, and then it's very safe. I mean, a lot of those streams are approved for just people taking a quick dip, but you do want to be careful. And also remember, some of those streams and rivers have currents, so if you're going to do that, make sure people have life vests on too. Another water type of hazard this time of year are hot tubs. At our local pool where we belong, hot tubs are a big attraction for little kids. They love to go near those, partly because adults go in them. They see all of us kind of gravitating to them. Even on a hot day, I love a dip in a hot tub after I've been exercising. The problem with hot tubs in small children is, believe it or not, if the water temperature is not 85 degrees or higher, small kids, infants and toddlers, can dehydrate incredibly quickly, and they'll start shivering and get hypothermia. So it kind of sounds counterintuitive, doesn't it, that if you have a tiny kid and they're in water that's even 75 or 80 or 82 degrees, that they can get hypothermic and get very cold, but they can. So that's why there are those big warning signs that tell you not to have tiny kids in these hot tubs for very long or just have their feet in. So never have an infant under a year of age in a hot tub, and for the toddlers, just let their feet go in for a few minutes and then pull them away. The biggest, I think, health hazard I see of these hot tubs, especially in public pools, is the parents lose track of their kid, and before you know it, their child is sitting on the step for 15, 20, 30 minutes. That's way too long. 3-4 minutes tops, and then get them out. If you don't set that boundary with them early, they'll think that the hot tub is just another swimming pool because it is deep enough if they stand in the middle for them to swim. So that's an important tip to keep in mind. Now, in terms of some of the biggest injuries of the year, I printed today an injury analysis from the American Association of Neurologic Surgeons. They looked at trauma injuries, head trauma injuries, and statistics from the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission, and very reassuringly, trampoline injuries are finally dropping. So that is really reassuring because backyard trampolines are incredibly popular. A lot of us who work with the American Academy of Pediatrics and other advocacy groups have been talking for a long time about how if you're going to have a backyard trampoline, make sure you use a lot of caution, that it's set up properly, you use the net around, you only have one child jumping at a time. I think people are starting to listen, either not get them as often or make sure kids are jumping properly. So that was very good news. But sadly, water sports and bikes and baseball and softball injuries are on the rise. So those are areas that I think people have to pay more attention to. So for water sports and biking, those are the two areas that I want to pay a little bit of attention to for just a couple minutes, because some of these things I think will shock you when you hear what's been going on. Now, in biking injuries, there were over 85,000 head injuries in children, in people in general, with about a third of those in kids 14 and under, most of them concussions and skull fractures. So, you know, I think a lot of those happen when kids this age, I know looking in my neighborhood, kids are zipping about, not paying attention. I often see groups of kids just kind of going handless without helmets, talking to their buddies. These are girls and boys, and they're just too cool to wear their helmet. And that's really the bottom line. So you have to force your kid to wear the helmet. It's hard. I know it is. I've got teenagers myself. But you have to force them to wear the helmet. Have a no helmet, no bike rule. The honest truth is we only have one brain, and if it breaks, we can't fix it. And as much progress that's been made in rehabilitating brain trauma, it really hasn't come very far, and I think kids need to understand that we can fix a broken arm, we can fix a broken leg, we can fix all sorts of other injuries. If they break their brain, they're likely going to suffer long-term problems and maybe even die. And I think for the teenagers, they're old enough to understand that you have to sort of do the tough love thing. What is more important, looking silly or saving your brain? So I think a lot of kids start to kind of wise up when they sort of recognize the risk factors, and you sit down with them and sort of do sort of an honest look. I'll wear one too, and this is why it's so important. Now, the other thing that was a surprise was that a lot of these kids are actually using their cell phones and texting while riding their bikes. So I think that is a big wake-up call, that we don't just have a problem with adult drivers trying to do this, but now kids are trying to do this while they are riding their bike. So if you catch your kids doing that, my advice is to take away the cell phone for a while or take away the bike, because that is just a huge, huge issue. They gave 3 examples. A 16-year-old was texting while riding his bike. He rode right through a crosswalk and into a moving car. An 18-year-old was talking on his cell phone. Same thing happened, but he sort of tripped over a curb and cut his mouth. A 15-year-old was talking on her cell phone, and she fell off and fractured her arm. So they gave a range of examples there. So I think it's just a wake-up call. We have to help our teens be a little bit more street savvy with their bikes. The other thing to remember with teens is teens are very smart, but they lose common sense when it comes to being with their friends, and they want to look cool. So there's this whole other element of teenness that we have to help them with. Now, in swimming pools, swimming pool accidents tend to be the same sort of thing, teenagers doing sort of stupid kid tricks because they want to look cool. It's often when they're trying to do stuff like diving into shallow ends or doing tricks off diving boards that they shouldn't be doing and fooling around. They gave some examples in this report of a 10-year-old who was running off the swimming pool deck, but she hit her head on the concrete instead. Or a 14-year-old who was being thrown into the pool, and the people slipped, and she hit the back of her head. A 12-year-old who was standing on his friend's shoulders and fell off. You know, stuff like that. You know, just you want to kind of get the kids to understand, you know, you're not supposed to do those things, so injuries are going to happen. So that's kind of the gloom and doom of, you know, the bikes and the swimming pools. The good news is if people use common sense, all of these things are preventable. So I think that's the great news with all of the stuff I just mentioned. So I look at these things as more warning signs than gloom and doom, because every single one of these injuries was preventable. And I think these things fall into the more injury category than the catastrophic and death category. So we can use these examples with our kids as, look, these things can happen to you. They don't have to, so let's be smart. Now, with July 4th coming up, I just wanted to remind everybody that fireworks, if you go over certain state borders, I know here in Massachusetts they're illegal. You go up north a little bit, you can get them incredibly easily, and they are just bad news. You should let the professionals do it. Some of the worst injuries I've seen as a practicing pediatrician when I used to do a lot of urgent care and emergency room work were from firecrackers. And my own nephew, who's now 21, when he was a little guy, like 2 or 3, somebody gave him one of those, I think it was one of those sparklers, and he didn't know to let it go because he was only 2, and he was just looking at it and holding it. And as it got lower and lower, it burnt his finger, and he ended up getting somewhere between a 2nd and 3rd degree burn on the end of his index finger. And the person who gave it to him just had no conception that just because it looks cool, you don't give that to a 2-year-old. I saw another bad injury when I was in an emergency room because a teenage boy had some bottle rockets in his back pocket, and he walked by a fire, and he was a good distance away from the fire, but just the heat of the fire alone was enough to set them off, and he came into our ER with a very extensive burn of his thigh that we ended up having to send him to a burn center for. So you really just don't want to have these things at all. In terms of the injury rates, in 2008, there were 7,000 people treated for fireworks-related injuries. 57% were burns, 27% were bruises and lacerations. 2 of 5%, or 40% of those folks, were under the age of 15. And the risk of fireworks injuries were highest for the teen group, the 15 to 19-year-olds, and kids 5 through 9. And that was at least 2.5 times the risk of the general population. And this was according to the National Fire folks. So these are the real statistics. The biggest risk is from sparklers and small firecrackers and, the types of stuff the kids would want to play with. So the best thing to do is just keep them away from people. So now what can you do to make things fun? So we've gone through the doom and gloom. We've gone through all the statistics. So now you kind of have the, okay, yeah, I get that. We have to kind of play it smart. Well, back to what I said at the beginning of the show, we want to have a lazy summer. We want to kind of keep it fun. We want to keep it loose. We want to be outside as much as we can. In fact, after I do this show, I'm logging off, setting my away message on, and heading out of town for a few days of some unplugged fun with my own family. And I'm planning on keeping most of my summer that way, even though I have a book project to work on and a few things. I'm changing my pace of the summer too, because I think it's really important to try to, regroup. And, I want to go outside, and, my big thing is digital photography. What better way of exploring that than to do it without a computer and just kind of get offline. So hopefully blog less and be outdoors more and have some great adventures to share come the fall. But I came up with a little mnemonic that's actually lazy summer, and here's how it works. The L is lube up. It's warm outside, and the sun is strong. The rays are really powerful, even if it's sort of hazy out and covering up. The sun can get burnt even in the shade, so make sure everybody has SPF 15 on or higher if you're 2 months of age or older. And for the little tykes under 2 months of age, keep them covered. You can put a tiny bit of sunblock on their faces or their hands, but otherwise you sort of want them in their stroller out in sort of the indirect sun, as it were. But you just want people to kind of be out of the direct sun. The experts will tell you, keep them out of the sun between 10 and 4. I know that's not realistic. Kids are in camp during that time, or you're doing your adventures during that time. If you can have people wear baseball hats and try to just kind of get some shade during that time, I think you're doing all right. 10 to 2 is really when the sun is the strongest. Maybe during lunch, get into the shade and take some sun breaks. The A is always hydrate. One of the biggest risks over the summer is heat illness, getting heat exhaustion or heat stroke. You can prevent it if you prehydrate everybody. Make sure people are just sipping on water all the time. On the really hot days where you notice people are sweating, that's the role for the sports drinks. And if you've noticed people are getting really logy, really lethargic, you're not noticing sweat out of certain family members, or people are acting a little bit out of it, think heat illness, cool them down, get some some hydration into them. And if you just don't like how your kids or the relative is looking, seek care. Better to seek care, concerned over a heat illness, and have it be a false alarm than end up with a disaster on your hands, because heat illness can be quite serious. The Z is zap those bugs. Make sure everybody has DEET on, which can be between 10 and 30% for kids 2 months of age and older. You usually don't need this until dusk, but if you're going out somewhere where you know there's going to be a lot of bugs, just throw some Skintastic for kids or for families in your bag. That's 10%. I find that works great for everybody, and you can all take showers later on. And those, people usually ask me, do the bug protective clothes and sun protective clothes work? They do. They're expensive though, so I'm not sure they're needed. But if you're going on an adventure where there's really hot sun like the tropics, or a lot of bugs like somewhere far away in Africa or some great exotic place, you might want to look into things like that. Y is you only have one head, so protect it. Back to what we were talking about with bikes, make sure everybody wears helmets appropriately and wear them yourself. You know, you might want to be the cool mom or dad, but you need to set a good example for your kids. S is swim smartly. We talked about this earlier. I just wanted to remind everybody that the American Academy of Pediatrics recommends swim lessons for all kids ages 4 and up. That's a little bit younger than we used to recommend. The idea is to get kids water smart, but that doesn't replace good supervision, and it doesn't also save your kids from drowning when they're younger. All it does is help them to learn how to not be fearful of the water, and as they get older, teach them to swim appropriately. Becoming a good swimmer doesn't mean you shouldn't wear a life vest when you're boating and doing other activities when you need a life vest, because we need to protect ourselves. If you're in a boat and it flips over, what if you get hit in the head with an oar or with the boat? You need the life vest to provide yourself some buoyancy, especially if you end up out there for some time. The U is unplug. As you know, this is one of my big missions lately. I think it's very important that we all stay offline as much as we can, because that's when your brain regroups. And I think we're all becoming too distracted with technology. So the summer is a wonderful time just to unplug. It's also a great time to just get outside more with your families, because you can move more. We don't get enough exercise, and I'll come back to that in a minute. The first M is mowing is for adults. And actually, there's 2 cutoffs here. Kids younger than 12 should never operate a push mower, and kids under 16 should never operate ride-ons. And also, kids should never ride the ride-on mowers with the adults. That's when I've seen the worst injuries. Mowers are incredibly dangerous, so unless you really need your kid to mow the lawn, it should be an adult-only task with nobody else there, for a number of reasons. Mowers can kick up things into the eyes and into the legs, and I've seen a lot of injuries from kids who just aren't sure what to do if something gets stuck in the mower or if they run across an obstacle. So I think, having a 12-year-old at home myself, I think 12 is probably a little young for a push mower, maybe 13, 14, or 15. 16, certainly a mature 16-year-old can deal with a push mower or even a ride-on mower if it's the right 16-year-old. Gauge it based on your child, not based on the age. The second M is move and groove every day. Summertime, long days, get your family some exercise, 20 to 30 minutes a day. The wonderful thing about summer is there's so many wonderful activities you can do to get everyone outside so you can have fun. We don't get enough activity during the school year, so this can be a great way to maybe find some activities that you can carry over with your kids into the school year. And coupled with that is E, eat for the season. With the wonderful fruits and vegetables out there, you might find some new foods that are a little bit more healthy for your family that can also carry over into the school year. Maybe some fresh vegetables or some wonderful fruit. Look for colors, look for tastes, things that kind of shake it up a little bit. The great thing about summer, too, is all the ice cream. So if you're getting people moving more and eating a little more healthy, the occasional treat isn't going to break the calorie bank. But try to kind of think of the whole big picture this summer, where you're getting people eating and moving and doing things differently. You might find by the end of the summer people are even more healthy than they've ever been in their entire lives, regardless of their age, and that might be something that's so motivating for them that they want to carry it over into the school year, and you can just find a way of doing that. And R is remember to focus on fun and family. Make this just the best summer of your life. Find out what everybody wants to do. Even if you're just staying home this summer and doing a staycation, which we've done many summers in a row. This summer we're doing a few more go out and explore, but last summer we did our first staycation and my kids loved it. Find things that everyone wants to do. Sit down and ask your kids, regardless of age, do you want to go to the beach? Do you want to go explore a cute town? Where do you want to go? You can find something to do every weekend if you're home with the kids during the week. Even if you're working from home, maybe you can adjust your hours where you do something during the day and then work at night. Make it about the family and find things that are just different than what you would normally do. You can explore museums or go on a nature walk. You can give everyone a digital camera and go on a little photo excavation and have people take pictures of what they see around them, make a photo journal. You can do scrapbooking using the photos. You can make a summer journal. There's so much you can do that will just get your kids' attention alive, that you can use the lazy summer approach to kind of keep that health and safety in the back of your mind while empowering your kids to move, eat healthy, and have fun at the same time. So I think if you use that approach, you'll find you'll have the best summer of your life, and your kids won't even notice that you're still keeping them healthy and safe at the same time. So I hope this helped and was able to regroup you in the right direction to step forward in a fun and healthy way. I've got some great show ideas lined up for the back-to-school time, which will kick in sometime in August. I know some of you start your back-to-school time earlier than we do in Massachusetts, so I'm going to start the shows hopefully by mid-August, if not a little bit sooner. So have a wonderful summer. Have a healthy and fun summer, and be as unplugged as much as you can. So this is Dr. Gwen, and I will be talking to you in a few weeks. Take care.